What we'd like to do now is head across to the half marathon, so the 21K. But Anita, if you could take us through your guidelines for tapering for the 21K, that would be great.
For the half marathon, I would start reducing your long run volume probably in the last 3 weeks out. And it doesn't have to be dramatic reduce in volume, but you really got to start making sure that each long run you're knocking off maybe 20 minutes, or depending on what you're up to with your long run. So the Sunday before your half marathon, you're probably only doing a long run of maybe 50 to 70 minutes, nice and easy. And everyone's different with that, so it's very hard to say exactly what you would do, but you're making sure that you're reducing that volume. And start reducing intensity as well of your training sessions about 2 weeks out. So similar to the other distances, just make sure you're cutting down on reps. You might be increasing the rest period between your reps to run them a little bit faster. I'd probably look at doing a 10K race, or even for a half, you could do a 5K race. You could do a 20-minute effort. You could do a 25-minute effort, something that's shorter than that half marathon distance. So look at doing some sort of a hit out. And I always say it's great to do a race, because in a race, you can practice what you're going to do on your race day for the half marathon. So if you can find a 10K race or even a 5K, even a park run, you practice getting up in the morning, having whatever you're going to eat for breakfast, having the fluid that you're going to consume before your half marathon. You practice all of that in this race at 3 to 5 weeks out. And then once you get into this race, if you're doing a 10K, just practice some of your nutritional strategies as well for your half. But I would look at doing something like that. With the 10K, you might want to start the first 2 to 3K half marathon pace, and then the last 7K a bit faster. If you're doing a 5K, you probably just want to run that a little bit faster overall than race pace. But the idea is to be running faster than your half marathon race pace, having a bit of a hit out. And then always when you do these little races in the last few weeks before your goal race, just make sure you have a couple of days where you're going really easy. So don't do anything hard, probably within 3 or 4 days of a hard hit out, especially as we're in that taper period. You really don't want to cram training. Like in the taper period, it's a time of easing back in training. So you can't catch up training that you think you haven't done 8 weeks before. You can't catch that up in the last few weeks. You've really got to make sure that you're starting to reduce volume intensity and increasing things like rest and recovery, and making sure that you're mentally ready for the race as well, which is a huge thing that we haven't talked about. But keep your training routine normal. So if you normally run 5 days a week, you can still do that in the taper period, but you just reduce the volume of your runs. So for some people, it's very good for them to keep in their normal routine and not take more rest days during the week. But for other people, they might prefer to take an extra couple of rest days in that taper week in the last week before a race like a half marathon. So really just got to think about what works for you. But I always say you'd rather do less than more. So if you're worried, or if you're not sure and you're not sure if you should have a rest day, I'd rather you take a rest day than push through a training session that you're not sure if you should be doing it in the taper week. And just make sure with your nutrition strategies, probably look at making sure you're having carbohydrates in your meals probably the last day and a half before the race. So you don't need to go crazy with carb loading for a half marathon, but just make sure you're having carbs for breakfast, lunch and dinner, especially dinner that night before, and just making sure that your glycogen stores are really topped up and you're ready for that race, because all these races, they start very early in the morning. So you're not going to be able to eat a lot on race morning. You should eat something, but you can't eat a lot of calories. So you have to have had your calories in the days before race day.